docked with the International Space Station a little over a day later, opening the hatch and greeting the Expedition 73 crew on June 26th. The crew shared some good words and a welcoming ceremony before quickly getting to work on their extensive itinerary. Now, each crew member brought with them a host of research, technology demonstrations, and outreach objectives, ranging from human physiology to space radiation impact studies, and even some gardening. Now, this crew maintained a very full timeline, but they prepared for this. Each crew member wanted to ensure that every minute of this mission was utilized well and that all objectives were hit. So Peggy, Shukes, Sław, and Tibor were ready to work. And over the course of 18 days on board the station, they accomplished over 60 research activities, as well as more than 20 outreach events. And as their time on station came to a close, the AX-4 crew participated in a brief farewell ceremony where they said their goodbyes to the Expedition 73 crew. Now, for more details on the incredible work performed by this crew on orbit, check out axiomspace.com.
Now, at this time, the crew is getting closer to reaching the approach ellipsoid. So let's head back to Anna at Johnson Space Center to step through these next moments. How's it going, Anna?
Thanks, Jesse and John, and thank you for that update. We are continuing to stand by for Dragon to exit the approach ellipsoid. We are expecting that exit to take place about 3 minutes from now, around 6:34 a.m. Central, 7:34 a.m. Eastern. Dragon is currently about 700 meters away from the International Space Station, following a physical separation about 16 minutes ago at 6:15 a.m. Central, 7:15 a.m. Eastern. The approach ellipsoid is one of several safety zones set up to govern spacecraft arriving and departing from the International Space Station, similar to the Keep Out sphere, which Dragon exited about 10 minutes ago at 6:21 a.m. Central, 7:21 a.m. Eastern. But unlike the Keep Out sphere, which is an invisible 200-meter line centered on the space station, the approach ellipsoid is a three-dimensional ellipsoid measuring 4 kilometers by 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers. When a spacecraft is outside the approach ellipsoid, they have to be on what we call a 24-hour safe free drift trajectory. This means the spacecraft would not cross into the approach ellipsoid for at least 24 hours again, even if it lost all maneuvering. And after the crew and Dragon exited the Keep Out sphere about 10 minutes ago, we heard that the crew was beginning to step through procedures to take off their spacesuits and settle in for their roughly 22.5-hour journey until a splashdown off the coast of California tomorrow, Tuesday, July 15th. And we are just continuing to stand by for confirmation of approach ellipsoid exit. Once Dragon exits the approach ellipsoid, the team here in Mission Control Houston will continue to monitor every step of the way, but prime responsibility once they exit that boundary will be transferred to the SpaceX and Axiom Space teams. Dragon is now about 860 meters away from the International Space Station and continuing to increase that distance between the two vehicles. And we're now about a minute away from exiting the approach ellipsoid. For those of you who are just joining us, We began our coverage of the Axiom mission for departure activities earlier this morning with hatch closure. That hatch close took place around 4:07 a.m. Central, 5:07 a.m. Eastern. The crew donned or put on their spacesuits and settled in for the departure activities.
I have you loud and clear on the cabin mic.
And we did just hear confirmation that Dragon has exited the approach ellipsoid.
On the big loop, I copied you loud and clear on the cabin mic. Dragon is also outside of the approach ellipsoid and is now on a 24-hour safe free drift trajectory. You can configure comm on Dragon to ground in preparation for disabling the big loop.
Dragon copies all and configuring comms for Dragon to ground.
Now that Dragon and the Axiom Mission 4 crew have exited the approach ellipsoid, that means the vehicle is now on a 24-hour safe free drift trajectory, which means the spacecraft would not cross into the approach ellipsoid for at least 24 hours again, even if it lost all maneuvering. So now that the crew and Dragon have exited the approach ellipsoid, they are settling in for their journey back to Earth. That journey will take about 22 more hours until they splash on.
Is reconnected and powered on.
Houston copies.
That journey will take about 22 more hours until they splash down off the coast of California tomorrow, Tuesday, July 15th at 4:31 a.m. Central, 5:31 a.m. Eastern. Now that Dragon has exited the approach ellipsoid, the team here in Mission Control Houston will continue to monitor, but prime responsibility for the spacecraft and the crew are going to be transferred to the SpaceX and Axiom space teams. We also heard that they are working on steps to deconfigure the big loop. That big loop was configured earlier today during those hatch close operations, and it is a joint communication loop between NASA, SpaceX, the International Space Station crew, and the Dragon crew during joint operations. Now that Dragon has successfully exited the approach ellipsoid, our joint coverage will come to a close as responsibility of the spacecraft and crew is now in the hands of SpaceX and Axiom Space. But thank you so much for joining us this morning for our coverage of hatch closure as well as our coverage of undocking for the Axiom Mission 4 crew. With that, I will go ahead and hand it back over to Jesse and John in Hawthorne, California as we conclude our coverage. But until next time, this is Mission Control Houston.
Awesome. Thanks, Anna. Now, the Axiom Mission 4 crew has just begun their 22.5-hour journey. So next up, the crew will doff or remove their spacesuits to get a little bit more comfortable for that flight back home. Our teams here on the ground will continue to keep an eye on the weather to ensure a safe return to Earth for Dragon and the AX4 crew. And should the current projections hold, starting at 4:28 a.m. Eastern Time, or 1:28 a.m. Pacific Time on Tuesday, July 15th, Axiom Space and SpaceX will pick up with live coverage of the conclusion of this AX4 mission.
That's right, and should teams need to adjust the timing of the crew's return, it's our plan to go live about an hour before splashdown. So for the latest timing of the final stage of the AX4 journey, please be sure to visit axiomspace.com and spacex.com for updates. So from all of us at Axiom Space, thank you to NASA for the incredible efforts made on this mission towards the shared goal of conducting meaningful work in low Earth orbit. This has been the mission to realize the return to human spaceflight for 3 incredible nations with big things on the horizon. So to our viewers in India, Poland, and Hungary, your crew members will be back on Earth soon, so stay tuned. And thank you for following their journey on board the International Space Station.
And thank you to all of you, the viewers, for tuning in today. We'll see you back here bright and early tomorrow morning for a splashdown of AX4.